2, 1, go. Alright, Solar, if you want to give a little bit of an intro to the game, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, go ahead and start mashing away. Welcome to Illusion of Gaia, everyone. I am Solar Cell 007 running commentary for Sci 990's Illusion of Gaia run. Here we find Will, who is giving us a little bit of backstory a year after a horrible incident went on at the Tower of Babel. He was there on an expedition with his father. He finds himself back here a year later, and he's going to begin his quest to find the mystic statues and to find his father. So Illusion of Gaia is a run that is heavily based on execution with a little bit of RNG twisted in. We are in the starting town of Southcape right now, and Sai's just going through the motions of hitting all the story triggers to progress through. So we're meeting all our childhood friends in here. We're showing off our telekinetic powers by using the flute, which is Will's main weapon, to pull that statue to the left. And now we're going to show off our powers even more and choose which card is the ace. And because the game is not too harsh on you, any card you choose will be the ace. And so we're already out and moving on to your grandparents' house.
And here we meet the mascot of the game.
Yes, this is Hamlet. The adorable little piggy who is just the hero of everything. Pet of Princess Kara, which we're meeting for the first time right here.
Yeah, there's a lot of mashing that goes on in the first few minutes of this game. That's why you hear a lot of clicking on my end.
Oh, we'll be hearing clicking for the rest of the game. A lot of mashing everywhere.
If only there was a run button.
Okay, so the guards from the castle have realized that Kara has escaped. They came to go retrieve her, and now you're just kind of wondering what the heck just happened with your grandparents. Alright, so you're going to wake up. Your grandmother's going to teach you a melody, which is the first of 3 melodies you'll learn, or are supposed to learn.
So we only really need 2 of them, though.
That you'll play on your flute as Will. And then while this is going on, I guess we can just talk a little bit about the tech. So moving around in this game, where most typical retro RPGs use an A button or B button to sprint around with, Illusion of Gaia relies on double tapping a direction to sprint. And so that's one thing that is the initial turn off to runners when they try to learn this game, is having to double tap any direction when you learn to sprint. You get used to it, though. You build up a little stamina on your thumb. Pretty good to go after a little while.
Yeah, if you'll notice right there that I had already made the selection before the menu came up. As soon as the menu zooms out far enough, you can actually buffer the inputs to select the location, so you don't have to wait for it to pop up.
So there's 2 interesting little tricks that Sai just did there when he was transferring his character from Southcape to Edward's Palace, or Edward's Castle. The first is when you zoom into a map transfer, there's about a second and a half before you have the option to choose a destination that you can actually choose that destination, which, if you can get that timing down, you'll save that time choosing the destination before it actually shows the runner when you can. The second trick is pressing start whenever the game's about to zoom out and then back in onto the destination. You'll skip that animation and save a little more time. So you'll see Sai do that every time he does a map transition.
I think it ends up saving a couple of minutes total.
Oh, I'd have to go through and count. I'm not sure. Alright, so long story short, the king is calling you a liar for not having the crystal ring. He's after you for it. So when you tell him you don't have it, you end up in prison. You end up in jail. And we can see here that Sai is losing his mind. Just kind of doing an interesting tech called guard dashing. It's one of the more intense techs to learn in the game. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad, but it is useful in a few spots. So while sprinting, i.e. double tapping a direction, if you let go of that direction and then quickly re-choose that direction, you actually won't lose that sprint within a certain frame window. And if we throw, that gives us a little bit of a window to throw in a L or R. The L or R button is what we use to guard. And if you can do that quick enough, you'll keep guarding while sprinting in a direction. Which, besides, that is good positioning. That guard can protect you while you're moving, but it can also draw things to you while you're moving towards them, saving a little bit of time. And we'll actually see that a little bit later in the run. All right, so Hamlet the hero, as we said, just run a little delivery service to give Sai the prison key. And we have our first dungeon, little mini dungeon of the game. So as Sai goes through here, we're not going to be too interested in killing enemies. It's going to be more about dodging enemies. Especially since we only have 8 HP. Oh, when he gets the Freak Dash, so I can actually talk about the Freak Dash. So one of the more recent techs in the game, it's been known for a while but never really implemented until a streamer by the name of Mr. Freet was kind of really hitting it heavy and kind of proved that it's possible to do this type of attack dash without losing momentum. So, as Will, if you attack while sprinting, but quickly press a diagonal, one of the two diagonals in that same direction, and it has to be a perfect diagonal, you'll cancel the attack animation, but still continue sprinting. And it's a very hard tech to get down, but recently a lot of the runners that are in this game are practicing it and using it because it does save a lot of time. It adds up over the course of the run.
Yeah, and that skeleton in particular is, one of the first instances of RNG where he can move any direction. You want him to move up, but he doesn't always do that.
Yeah, so Sai did a perfect execution Freak Dash. He got through it. And he was lucky enough to get a HP drop from that brown bat he just killed. So he's at full HP, ready to take on the second half of the prison.
And that bat really only tends to drop an HP jewel if you're below 50%. I'm just going to go ahead and, for safety, go ahead and take that skeleton out because he likes to troll. And take a hit there, but it's fine.
So there are these places called dark spaces in the game. This is where you meet Gaia, who's kind of your guide throughout the entire game. It's also where you'll find your transformations for Will and ability moves for the characters in the game. So here we have Friedan, your first transformation, the Dark Knight. And each character has a different move set and different uses. So Friedan, so Will has a limitation of you have to use a diagonal to kind of do a freak dash or an invincibility frame dash through an enemy. With the Dark Knight Friedan, and then a later character we'll meet further on in the game, you can just hold any direction, swing your sword, and then re-hit that direction. And you should be able to dash through an enemy, like Sai's been doing through the rest of this prison with Friedan, without taking damage. So we're about at the end of the prison. You're gonna see Sai pick up 5 red jewels. We're gonna keep it safe for the marathon. There's it's called the Krollex strat, i.e. the safety strat. If you collect 5 red jewels and turn them into the jeweler, and the jeweler is in various places in various cities throughout the game, so you have plenty of opportunities to do that. You're able to get an extra herb and 1 extra defense, which is very useful, especially in a marathon setting. There's a total of 50 red jewels in the game, and if you collect all 50 like you would do in the 100% run, you actually get an extra little dungeon plus a secret boss. But in the 80%, we skip all that, and if you want to use the Krollex strat, you'll end up collecting just 5 red jewels for those little the bonuses. So we busted out of prison. We've come to rescue Kara.
And now the most important item in the game.
followed with the slowest text box in the game.
Yeah, at least they changed that in the English version. And not all
So
the text boxes are slow.
Yeah, there are a few variable speeds and text boxes in the English version of this game. You'll get some, like that was just showcased with that roast leg of yak, that you have no control over how fast that text scrolls. You just have to wait it out and kind of mash towards the end of it so you can time it when you need to progress to the next text box. And then you have fast text boxes, which are single frame pop-ups, and you can just hit one button to mash through them. So there is some tech in mashing with the A, B, and Y button correctly to quickly go through text boxes. Alright, so we have Lily here also. We met Lily briefly in the underground prison. She has the ability to transform into a little dandelion and fit in your pocket and follow you around. We'll see that a few more times in the run. But she is now escorting us to Itori Village, her home village, and we're going here because you just realized your grandparents aren't in their house, and you have the mark of the jackal, which is the bounty hunter, set out by the king. So you're going here for safety, and also to progress your story.
No, weird thing about progression in this is some triggers aren't even needed to progress the story, which we'll be skipping one here shortly. We'll go in here to make Lily and Kara move a little faster.
Yeah, so if Sai hadn't gone into that cabin and come back out, he would still been waiting for both those characters to walk over to that bridge. So it's a nice little time save. And here we'll get Will's first move, which coincidentally he can use before that sphere makes contact with him. And he does that to bounce off the northern border of that section to get him a little closer to the exit, save a few frames.
Yeah, it drops us a half a tile, so you gotta save them frames.
So this is Psycho Dash. You can use this to bust through barriers and bust through breakable statues.
The first thing we're going to skip is right here. We get told to go back into that little graveyard area to talk to the spirit of the Ituri, but we don't have time for that.
So the game right here introduces you to an interesting little thing where there's no indication of where a secret wall might be, but if you watch Will's hair and you see it blowing, you're supposed to know, oh, wind's blowing through a crack in the wall. This is where you should use the Psycho Dash and bust open the wall. And we'll use this again later in the run, too.
Now, they also did a bit of a Legend of Zelda style where you can actually attack the wall and it will make a different sound.
That is true, yes. So we went into that little section to get an Incan statue, and we need 2 Incan statues to be able to beat the first dungeon. So we're going to make our way to Moon Tribe Camp and see if we can complete their challenge and get the second Mystic statue before we progress to the next dungeon.
So go out there, wake them up, and then come over here and have some fun.
So the Moon Tribe challenge is a 20-second challenge. You have that amount of time to kill 6 of these crawlers. We're going to use a Psycho Dash for starting out with a big damage boost. Sai's going to be doing jumping attacks to do 2 damage. And with 9 seconds left, that was a pretty good Moon Tribe challenge.
That actually was, yeah.
So any speedrunner would be happy to have that. I'm jealous you're doing that in a marathon setting. Whatever. Alright, with both statues, we're on to the Incan ruins. And we're going to make our way through there. We'll also be seeing our first sequence break of the run in here. There aren't too many sequence breaks in the run, and when we do have them, they don't save an incredible amount of time, but it's definitely enough to warrant them.
I think this one saves the most amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. They're calling it clicking ASMR in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that. Welcome to Gaia. Charge.
Okay, so in that first room, Sai charged up a Psycho Dash and killed that four-way head statue on the left side. That's to protect himself when he goes back to that room and places the item he's about to get outside here. In certain cutscenes, the game locks you into place, but you still can take damage. And so we're just going to make sure he doesn't take damage here. Alright, so not too hard a puzzle. We get the diamond-shaped block. In the second room of the game, first room of the game, you have the diamond-shaped hole.
Which is underneath this four-way, but we don't have to kill it to place the item, which is nice.
A little bit of bad RNG on where the enemy was standing on that bridge, but
yeah.
Sai handled that fine. Alright, so we're going to charge in here because we have a statue we have to break apart. It's in the way. And now we're here at the first sequence break. So the game expects you to go through another part of the dungeon, transform into Friedan, and come back and use Friedan's sword to hit this head to open the little ramp to progress on. However, Will's dashing attack, the edge of his flute is long enough to hit that statue. It opens that up, and you can progress without having to go get Friedan from a dark space and also learn the wind melody for later in the dungeon. There's also another trick that Sai did there called the ramp glitch. I'll talk about that when we get into another dungeon. Kind of passed it up. I want to be able to make sure we can see it when we talk about it. So right there, Sai made a little divergence from like the most optimal running strat. And the reason is we want to time save later on the run. He picked up an herb right there. And I'll talk about that herb whenever we get to a scene right after this dungeon.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder if I want to save that or not.
Oh, live a little.
Oh, well, you heard it, folks. And here's the next sequence break, knowing which tile to stand on.
Yeah, so there's 72 tiles here. You need to stand on a tile for 10 seconds before the door unlocks. You need the wind melody to illuminate which tile you want to use, but Sai, the master behind everything, has the ability to tell which tile he wants to stand on. So he chose that tile, and we're progressing through.
Now, I am 1 HP short. Any attack that I get hit by from the boss will one-shot me, so just as a precaution.
Alright, so we are coming up on the first boss, Castoff. It's kind of a two-part fight. Castoff has two hands and his head, and you can't damage his head. Actually, I'm not sure if you can damage his head or not. All the hands are there. But the first thing you want to do is destroy both his hands, and that'll unlock the ability to damage his head.
Now, the head won't activate if the hands are out.
So there is a perfect attacking rhythm.
That's good.
I'm going to be quiet while Sai's doing this. He had the RNG.
Yeah, I had the RNG, but my thumb forgot what to do.
Okay, so yeah, there is a perfect attacking rhythm to where you can one cycle Castoff here. There were two slight pauses, which was enough to leave him with the 4 HP, but it's extremely difficult to pull off the one cycle. And if you don't get it during a speed run, you don't reset over it. Not even the top of the top times reset over that. So that's the first boss. We're going to go ahead and hop down out of this dungeon onto the Ink and Gold ship.
where we are labeled the Short King, if you talk to people.
So here's the queen. Necessary story trigger to talk to her. This allows you access to your first of 6 mystic statues.
Alright, now in order to progress the story further, we have to go up into the crow's nest to talk to the lookout. Now there is a trick I could do while I'm up here to save a bit of time, if I get these set up quick enough. Which, I was a pixel off. I had the right inputs, just not the right position.
Yeah, so if you're on the right position, you can hit B and then quickly, right after, hit down, and that should activate the trigger to talk to that character, but also jump you off the crow's nest and save about 3.5 seconds, somewhere around there.
But if you fail it, you lose a lot more than you save.
Yes, so Sai failed it too close to the NPC, which is what you want to do if you fail it. Nothing happens that way, but if you fail it too far away from the NPC, you're just going to jump off the crow's nest and have to climb back up. And that would have been a horribly embarrassing thing to do in front of everyone, so I'm so happy that didn't happen, Sai. Alright, so Sai's blazing through this. Kind of hard to catch all the story, but right now, the ship's being attacked by a ginormous fish.
Oh, hold on. It's a huge, enormous giant fish.
Oh, forgive me.
And which brings us to our every runner's favorite part in the game.
The flippin' raft scene. Alright, so the raft scene is just a bunch of triggers you have to meet in order to progress the story. So on that first instance, you had to talk to Kara twice, and then quickly eat the roast like a yak. On this one, you just have to hit a fish, talk to Kara, and then after a little bit of time, you get another text box and the story progresses. So there's a little bit of RNG in this. There's a few instances of when the fish actually appear on screen. So here, you just have to wait to hit one fish. A little bit later on, you're going to have to hit a few more fish, so you hope you get them quite quickly.
Yeah, you hope for double and triples.
Yes. Alright, so that herb that Sai picked up, he could use it for safety later in the run, or he could use it to fill his HP. If you notice, as the days go on, Will has less and less HP, and so on the next cutscene, he's going to have to eat fish to get back to full HP. And so an herb fills 8 HP up. So that's 8 fish you don't have to catch. So he could do that, or he could use that herb later in the run.
Oh, that's painful for it to do that
That
to me.
is super painful for those 3 fish. Alright, so he just had 2 fish.
Oh, wow.
Use the herb. And now we're waiting on that. Oh, the game is not happy with you.
Marathon luck.
Alright, so yeah, he ate that herb to save a little bit extra time. And now once Kara's in place, he's going to hit the fish. So that she has one to eat, and then the story progresses. This is our little romance scene with Kara.
Then we proceed on to Shark Week.
So yeah, just a few text boxes with Kara, a little bit of waiting, and then mashing through another text box. If you're quick enough with the text boxes, you can actually skip the shark fin going across the top of the screen. But I don't actually think it saves any time.
And then I hit an extra Y input there.
But that's also very, very difficult to do.
Best part
Even
here,
on...
suddenly Will fell over unconscious. You know, such an incredible narrator, he can narrate himself passing out.
I do not condone picking on the programming of this game.
What are you talking about? The programming is solid.
Okay, so, of course, that long out on a raft, you're obviously going to contract scurvy. But you're rescued by this guy. We're on a completely different continent now, and we're moving on to Frisia.
I just picked up my last red jewel.
So yeah, we're going to Frisia. A little bit of story progression triggers to go through here, but we're also going to see the jeweler for the one and only time here. This is where Sai's going to pick up his extra herb and his extra defense, which is extremely useful for the dungeon coming up. Also, Will's not afraid to be a trash picker, as he just got an extra HP and an extra herb out of the trash there.
Who would throw that kind of stuff away?
I guess people who don't need it. Alright, so there's a lot of dark edginess to this game story-wise.
We've got a
one of the towns that revolve around.
Shout out to that
and you
boss
can't see me,
player,
but
the
I'm
Fly
air quoting
Lady,
labor
hosting
trading.
RP motherfucking
And so
G,
Eric was just
RPG
kidnapped
the
right there. You
Dawn,
just rescued
RP
him.
Godfather.
And he
Enjoy
points
your
out where
stay.
other, air quotes,
Make
labor
sure to
traders
roll
are
deep while you hold it down
in the diamond mines.
and stay
And so you're going to
fresh.
make your way
Roll
there
deep.
after we pick up the extra defense
motherfucking
and
G.
herb.
Yeah, even with as colorful as this game looks, it has a dark side to it.
It really does.
And you have to do the 100% to fully immerse yourself in it. Oh, Diamond Mine.
Alright, so Diamond Mine's kind of like the first scary area for a runner. But you also want to balance good execution enemy dodging with good damage taking so that you can get a quick death abuse transport back to the beginning of the dungeon when you need to. So Sai's going to be charging a Psycho Dash right here to take care of an enemy, which it's going to be a little bit of pain in the butt to dodge otherwise.
I could possibly Freak Dash, but he's also got the chance of turning into stone, which could block me.
Go ahead.
That was it. It's just safer to kill him, just get him out of your way.
Yeah, for anyone running this game, you really never want to Freak Dash that Beholder, because almost every time, if he doesn't turn to stone, he'll just get knocked further down, and you'll end up running into him anyway.
I love how we call him Beholder.
Yeah, some of the names for these are kind of spot on.
Shout out to Final Fantasy for the Beholder thing there. Just gonna
Alright,
pop him out of the way.
We're gonna see the ramp glitch again here. So, on certain tiles, if you jump attack at the right time, you'll kind of get stuck on the bottom tile of a ramp. And that's useful because you actually get the jumping speed to go over other ramps, or running speed, depending on the obstacle, just from the bottom tile of the ramp. And so you don't have to run all the way around up some stairs and then down the ramp to do that. You can just do the jump attack and save a little bit of time. So Sai has plenty of HP right now, so he purposely took that hit on that worm to kind of shave off some HP, because he's going to be dying soon to warp back to the beginning of the dungeon. So we break through that little secret wall, and we get Friedan's first move, the Dark Friar.
Yeah, if anything, I have a little too much HP, but it's fine. Because you never know just how the enemies are going to move on the way back down. It's a little easier to see him running up than it is to run when you're running back down. Thank you for that good luck, Mr. Freed.
We'll hold you to that, Mr. Freet. You better never miss a Freet dash on that ever again.
Now, as you've seen, I'm taking a few bonks on the way down just to deplete my health some more.
And as you'll see, he's giving me a little bit of a heart attack, but he knows what he's doing.
Pause right there because I want to make sure that bullet disappears. Because I can destroy that run.
So we rescue the first trader there, or first laborer there, to get the elevator key to progress further down into the diamond mines. But instead of running all the way back to the second screen of the dungeon, we're going to death warp out of here.
See, it only took a couple hits there instead of me having to try to deplete the amount of HP that I had before. Yeah, there are a lot of planned bonks in this game. And there can also be a lot of unplanned bonks. You know, if the game decides it wants to throw some bad RNG at you. Because we are going up the elevator.
Always attacking the game. Alright, so there's 2 rooms here. Each has a key to progress to the final part of the dungeon. This room being the slightly scarier one, as there are a lot more enemies that you're trying to dodge. We are going to want to death warp out of here, but we don't want to take a lot of damage because we have to go through this maze and then back through this maze. So, besides charging up the Psycho Dash to simultaneously break that chain and also talk to the laborer.
Yeah, if I don't do the input right there, I'll just break the chain. I won't talk to the laborer.
So he's going to make his way back.
Turns to stone. You go back that way. I'll take a bomb there. Health isn't bad, but it's good spot. We'll pick up the last key here. Funny thing is, we don't have to be exactly on top of the marker for it. We can be close, so that way that's the reason why I don't have to go down past the corpse, because I mean that's what it is. It's a corpse to get that last key. Can I get it? Can I get the setup? No, too high.
Alright, so we just rescued Sam, and Sam is teaching you the second melody of the game that Sai's learning right now. It is the third melody, but we didn't get the win melody. This is the memory melody, and we missed this little story plot because we never went into the inn at Frisia. Lance has lost his memory, and so Sam just taught you that melody so you can restore Lance's memory. Now, you'll notice here that Sai's a terrible person because he didn't rescue the other laborers. He just decided to rescue Sam. He got what he wanted and he left. That's kind of messed up, but the run continues.
We're such horrible people. Yes, now we'll go into the hotel and join up with the rest of our friends. Okay, that should be some good inputs for that. Now, have you ever wondered what the majority of the text speed is in the Japanese version of the game? Well, here you go. This is every text box. Or at least the majority of the text box. I'm not sure if the key items are the same speed as in the English or not.
This is your favorite track, isn't it, Sai?
Yes, it's called In the Earthen Womb. Odd name for a track, I know, but it's just such a peaceful melody. Now, we have yet to get to my favorite dungeon music. We'll get there closer to the end. Alright, now we played the melody, and Lance has regained his memory. and wonders where he's at.
Alright, so everybody's back together. They have some idea of where they want to go. They're going to go to Neil's cottage. And Neil is Will's cousin, so that's how they know he's up here. Another little bit of trigger in here. You need to interact with all 4 of Neil's inventions to kind of progress through the story. So you'll see runners beat themselves up if they kind of mess up.
Like that.
Going it quickly. You have to call yourself outside.
I ran into Neil. Got that lower pixel on him.
Alright, so very quick destination here. We're already leaving again. We're going to go to the Nazca Plains. Coming up on the 2nd dungeon.
I think this is one of the reasons why I like this game so much, is it has a couple of real-world areas. This being the first one we go to, we'll go to the second one, Angkor Wat, later. Which, that's my favorite dungeon and music.
Alright, so in here you have to interact with certain characters at specific places. So he talks to Kara once she stops moving, then talks to Lily when Lily stops moving, and then Kara again further south. Then, without any kind of knowledge of what you're supposed to do, there's a moon tribe.
Bad placement. I couldn't get the thread.
You tried though. So yeah, pixel perfect. You can get between those 2 pairs of characters to talk to Neil, but it's kind of hard to. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get set up properly. So I made the right call to dodge around to the left instead of losing time trying to fit in there.
Now I had to wait for only one character to stop down here, and that's Neil. Can I get it? Ah, I was a frame off.
Alright, so we're going to warp up into Sky Garden.
Which is another good dungeon. It also has good music to it. Actually, the whole soundtrack is pretty good.
So Sky Garden is broken into 4 rooms and a boss room, and a top side and underside to each of those rooms.
Now that went a little worse than I thought it would. That's what happens when you miss a free dash, as we call it.
Yeah, free dashes come as a risk-reward kind of thing.
So now my health is kind of low right now, so I'm going to be taking this a little cautiously. I do not want to get hit by this guy because he does a little more damage than his above-ground counterpart.
Yeah, the green snakes and the red robots do a little extra damage compared to the blue and purple counterparts. Alright, so we got the crystal ball, which we'll need 3 others in the other rooms, and now you're going to see Psy Death Warp out of here. That's one other thing I should mention. So there are checkpoints in certain dungeons. Usually every dungeon has a checkpoint at the beginning of it. There are rare instances where you have checkpoints that aren't at the beginning of the dungeon. So here we have Sky Garden. Each time you enter one of these extra rooms, a checkpoint is set at the beginning of that room.
More ramp glitch for you. Now, at first we only thought that you could only do it on horizontal ramps. But another runner of the game, Lehol, while he was creating while he's still creating the task for it, found that you can do a frame-perfect input for the vertical ramps. But being frame-perfect, it'll lose you more time if you can't get it on the first try.
I was wondering why you didn't go for it, Sai.
I didn't have slider.
Oh, no kidding. Alright. We're on the underside of room 2. We're going to come back topside. Use the reach of Friedan's sword here to kind of cheese killing that robot.
Oh, should I go? No, I'm not going to go for it.
Don't you dare.
There is a quick strat, but it's not very safe.
And not having saved anywhere, if he soft locks the game now, run over.
Yeah, if I were to grab that chest at the wrong time while the orb was exploding that barrier, I would soft lock the game. Now, if you're fast enough, normally you can get out without soft locking, but it's still no guarantee.
One other thing to mention that we kind of missed throughout the entire run is that you'll see Sai, after he kills an enemy that releases some kind of orb, you'll see him go into his inventory and then back out. So most of the time when you see an orb appear, it's going to break down a barrier or open a doorway or something like that. Almost every instance of that, if you go into the menu and then back out, you'll actually spawn the broken barrier, or you'll despawn the barrier, or you'll spawn the open door, and you'll be able to just progress without having to wait for the destruction animation. And it saves a little bit of time. So Sai was doing some jump attacks over these ramps, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to go through this entire room, lower some platforms, and sprint from all the way from the right to the left side. See another glitch right here where you can jump attack, land on top basically of the pillars that pop up, and then pressing up will knock Will down out of that barrier. You're supposed to be able to use Freedan to hit that switch.
This is the only room that we do not death warp out of because we need Freedan in the next room.
Yeah, so Sai got the crystal ball, but then went out of his way to pick up Freedan, and he did that to save 2 to 3 seconds because the game expects you, or I'm assuming, is thinking you're going to be going to the end of this room to get Freedan.
Now, I know some of the older routes did actually go into that dark space.
Yeah, it's getting Freedan here is a semi-recent thing. I think that was found last year, I want to say. But since we have Freedan right now, we can go ahead and attack the sword, which allows us to move the statue and open up this barrier. Alright, so here you're going to see Sai try using this sword to his advantage, save a little bit of time.
Whew. I don't know why it did what it did.
I'm not going to explain how that shouldn't have worked.
Okay, but I guess we should explain how it's supposed to work.
So, ideally, you get hit with by that sword and it knocks you up. You look down, the sword hits you again, and it'll knock you down against that ledge, which allows you to walk around the statue. You should be, I mean, the game expects you to kill that sword and then move the statue, but Sai was able to get around it. So we have the second boss already right here, Viper. Viper is a little more menacing than Castoff. He's got a lot of different movesets, and if you're not really aware of how he's going to react, it's easy to take a lot of damage. And especially at this stage in the game where you're starting to get a little squishy, 2 hits and you're dead on this boss. But like a champ, Sai handled it.
One of the better fights I've had.
We got our second Mystic statue. Yeah, not too bad.
And then we'll hear Neil yell at us to jump off because we're falling. So he wants us to fall even faster and try to catch us with his airplane. However, he drops a contact, which somehow they have contacts in this time period, but you know, that's just game logic. So he misses us on the first chance, so comes back around and gets us. And Will, having the strong legs that he does, doesn't get any damage dealt to him by landing on top of a moving plane.
So while we're kind of floating around here during the story, I guess we can talk about how squishy Sai is going to be. Each room in the game has some kind of force jewel that a character can get when you kill every enemy in that room. And that can be an HP upgrade, a strength upgrade, or a defense upgrade. Now, you don't have to collect those. If you kill one of the main bosses in the game, you'll end up collecting every one of those upgrades that you missed. So, like for the Incan statue, or for the Incan ruins, when you killed Castoff, he picked up all the upgrades from the underground prison and from the Incan ruins. Here from Viper, he picked everything up from the diamond mines and from Sky Garden. But the pacing of these upgrades is not perfect every time as far as what a speedrunner wants.
No, not by any means.
So he's in Seaside Palace right now. It's not really a dungeon. The next dungeon is new, and this is another dungeon where the extra defense upgrade he picked up from the jeweler definitely helps.
One word. Wizrobes.
So there's an enemy in this game called Flashers, but they're not called Flashers. Everyone knows them as Wizrobes. They just spawn out of nowhere and really have a tendency to spawn right on top of you.
Yeah, if they want to spawn in your face, they will spawn in your face.
And if the spawn doesn't get you, they have tracking attacks, which you have to watch out for. You can block them with your telekinetic flute twirling, but they're very dangerous. Plus, the other enemies in the dungeon are also equally dangerous.
Now we're going to purify this palace with the purification stone we just picked up from inside one of the vampire coffins.
So yeah, there's a lot of vampire lore in this dungeon, and we'll finish off the next dungeon with some vampires.
Did you know everybody loves vampires? Yes, all the monsters that you would actually see running through here are actually people. Oh, I knew she was going to try for it.
So every speedrunner's nightmare is NPC RNG. So while you're running back through here, you're trying to have perfect execution and dodging everything, but there are NPCs that like to move, and if they move and block you, you're just going to become irate.
In the rando version of this game, I have found a new NPC to rage at. In the room where we get the purification stone, there is one of the labor traders. And if he just wants to walk into the doorway, he'll just do it. And I've had him sit in that doorway for a good minute and a half.
So Sai just picked up the new palace key. He's going to walk back to the beginning of this dungeon. There are no more enemies here, so he can't death warp. And then we're going to head on to Mew. And I will just keep my fingers crossed for him, because Mew is where runs go to die.
Ooh, yeah. I gotta go for it right here, though.
Alright, so Mew sadly is our last chance to do free dashes.
And I failed. Horizontal are a little easier to do than the vertical. Oh, he the jump back on him. He wasn't gonna let me have that. Oop, there's the Wizrobe.
So yeah, you saw how quickly that spawns up. You'll learn to hate them if you want to pick this run up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of back off here. Okay.
Alright, taking things a little safer here. Understandable.
Yeah, that spot can go either real well or really bad, and it tried to go very bad.
Alright, so you saw Sai go into his menu there to cancel those animations, so he could just progress through that rock before it was actually destroyed.
Go ahead and block that.
Alright, so a little more puzzle aspect in this dungeon. You're supposed to, right there, you'll see a statue, two statues facing, and where they intersect, there's a treasure chest. And that's supposed to teach you, in this room, there's two statues, where their vision intersects, there's a treasure right there. And this is where Sai picks up the first of two statues of hope. And we're going to use these statues to lower the water level in Mew and be able to progress further through the dungeon.
And right there, Lily kind of gives you a hint as to the whole item between in the gaze of the statues.
So yeah, so I just did a little backwards jump there to get over that. Saves a lot of time.
Instead of having to knock it up the entire time. Now, the only friendly Wizrobes. And now, placing that statue on the pedestal forces the water to drain out of some of the levels, which allows me to progress further into the dungeon. Hopefully they are more cooperative on the way back. They really weren't. So, but made it work. Be taking this a bit slower.
Yeah, the further you get into this dungeon, the more punishing a death would be, so being a little protective of your HP here is definitely understandable.
And as you saw with that one orb that the Wizrobe shot off, it curved because it was trying to come after me. Now, normally I would take a hit right here, but...
Yeah, the speed strat is to take damage on this slime. We can't really afford to do that right now. So we're going to hit the switch and then make it past these spikes before they raise again.
And, okay, RNG was kind, he did not spawn on my face. Typically those fire snakes will hone in on your position, but if you're far enough away, they'll just go random. And here we'll pick up Will's second ability, the Psycho Slider. And I will again use a Psycho Dash to push me back. And here's where we say goodbye to the Freak Dash. Because now when I use my attack button as I'm running, I will slide instead of doing a normal attack.
Alright, so with 5 HP, we have one section left to go through before we death warp back.
I'm going to kind of hesitate there just to manipulate where that first snake was going to shoot. Let's hope the wizard up here is kind again. Almost wasn't.
So I can take one hit and still be fine. Depending on what he gets hit by, I don't think he can take 2 hits, though.
Ooh, a perfect bounce.
So you see a guard dash right there. Save a little bit of time bringing that bouncer to him while going towards it to come in range of it.
Yeah, you kind of have to stutter your left input, or you'll bounce too far away, and you'll have to run back at it. I'm gonna go ahead and just slide. Now, I could have taken a hit from the spikes. The spikes only do 1 HP of damage, but there's also a chance of a wizard rope, so... Yeah.
So yeah, we got our second Statue of Hope. We're going to death warp, and I had chickened out so hard and healed. I can't believe you didn't heal. I'm so glad you made it.
Yeah, that could have gone very, very bad. Normally, if your HP is below 6... you'll do a safety heal when you get Slider. Okay, just make sure I equipped it. Because, yeah, I've had instances where somehow the wizard spawned just close enough on screen while I was picking up that Statue of Hope to shoot at me. Alright, place the final statue. Now it's time to grab our Rama statues.
Yeah, so like the Incan Ruins, we need 2 statues here to get into the boss arena. So with the Psycho Slider, you get the ability to do a pretty powerful attack on enemies. And you also have the ability to slide through these little crevices in the wall.
Oh, that one tried.
Alright, so we're going to see a little execution amazingness here called Invincibility. If you do a Psycho Slide or a jump attack into a treasure chest and open that treasure chest during the animation, you'll actually retain the invincibility frames you get from doing either of those 2 moves, but only for the one screen you're on. So you just saw Sai run through that slime and not take any damage. And we'll do this for the second Rama statue too.
Oh, I didn't get the frame. Now, you can cancel that glitch while on that same screen if you do a jump attack or a slide. Oh, of course you would. Gotta take that little safe since Golem decided to go towards treasure chest. But yes, if I were to do another slide or a jump attack right now, it would cancel out the iframe glitch.
I think even charging like a Psycho Dash might.
Yeah, anything that
cancel it too.
that requires any input aside from a directional. And we're going to do a safety save here because vampires.
So yeah, I mean, this is a marathon setting. We are definitely going to save here. We're coming up on one of the hardest bosses in the game, the vampires. We have 3 herbs to deal with them. It might not even be enough. It's just, there's a lot of tech that goes into this fight. We do a safety save here, just in case things go wrong, so that we'll have the herbs again for the refight.
Yeah, on top of all the tech, there's also a pretty good amount of RNG as to which way they move, especially with the male vampires, and you'll see why.
So yeah, they have their own individual attacks. They act independently, but they also have a joint attack, which does an insane amount of damage. We're already getting the Mystic Statue right now. Why we don't just leave Mew, I don't know. That's just how the game goes. But
good story
we're
development.
We're gonna go fight them and rescue Eric. But while he's fighting them, I'm gonna keep quiet so I don't distract him. Let's just wish him luck.
Come on. Oh, that was bad. Oh, he did not need to spawn right there. I'm gonna go ahead and use that second one. She's gonna hang out down below for a little while. Alright, we got rid of the female vampire. We usually try to go after her first because, as you see, her movements are all just straight lines. You can kind of figure out where she's gonna go. The male vampire, on the other hand, can just go any way he wants. Also, the male vampire's barrier does not do near the damage that the female's does. Let's go ahead and do that. Just didn't need to, but...
Alright, and there's the dead vampires. So RNG-wise, pretty bad. The female vampire was hanging out on the bottom of the screen for a while. But dead vampires are dead vampires.
Yeah, see, the problem is that it doesn't matter where they are on screen, they can attack no matter what. So they will shoot their multi-directional fire attack at you. And if I could just blindly run down and run right into it. And that would be a bad death. But that's also why we safety saved as a precaution. The sad part is they're not even the worst part, worst amount of RNG in the game. That'll be the next boss coming up. So we'll need some Bliss RNG for Sandfinger when we get to him.
So this little story point right here, we're progressing past Mew. We're in the Seaside Passage, and after a certain amount of time, you hear the walls start to shake. That giant fish, or large, enormous giant fish, or whatever it is, starts attacking. But you're actually going to start talking to Seth, who was swallowed by Riverson, the fish. And in Morse code, he's kind of giving you a good chunk of background knowledge on what's going on outside of your party, as far as there's a comet, and the light of this comet is affecting evolution on Earth, and you and your party have to try to figure out the riddle of all this.
But before we continue, we make a stop here in Angel Village. While the majority of your friends go into the guest room, Kara, being the rebel that she is, decides to go explore, so we have to chase after her. So we'll come to the end here of Angel Village, and we have a little mini dungeon.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, he's facing down. I'm just gonna let him run by. If he had been facing up, I could have knocked him out of the way, but he decided to be a troll.
Yeah, so Sai's going to be taking a lot more damage per hit now. He did just kill the vampires. Maybe not too much. Maybe I'm a little not tuned to any percent for a while. Not too much damage since it is right after the vampires.
Yeah, I'm caught up completely on the stats that I should have, along with the extra bit of defense from the jeweler.
The one thing he does want to make sure of, though, he wants to make sure he does not take too much damage here, because there is no heal between here and the next main dungeon.
Now, if I wanted to, for an extra bit of safety, this room right here does have a health force gem. And it's not that bad to pick up, because there's just 2 enemies to kill. But with me being at full HP, it's not really worth the extra time.
Alright, so everyone in chat, you're going to have to be quick with your eyes. We got a little bit of a puzzle here. You're going to see 4 pairs of rooms. The first room you're supposed to study. The second room you're supposed to see what's different about it. And so see if you can pick it out before Sai answers the questions. Gotta look quick, though.
Now, we'll be grabbing this.
Yeah, so Sai's going to be picking up the last safety herb of the game. This is to use in the later dungeons if he needs a little extra HP.
Particularly one room in the final dungeon. Yeah. The answers to these rooms are always the same. They are never random. So as soon as you know you've got to memorize as to which ones are which, you can just walk in and walk back out. But now we have the magic dust. The magic dust is to sprinkle on this painting of Kara.
So Ishtar, the guy that was in that room, has the ability to transform things into paintings, and Kara, in her nosiness, got caught up in it. And so for completing that puzzle, you get the magic dust, and you're rescuing Kara. We can get out of here and move on to the next town.
And we also saw the most awkward hug in the game. Which I think we all try to do that. Try to get as far to the right on that painting as we can. And now we will arrive at Watermia.
Everyone arrives at Watermia. There's a man, I can't even remember the guy's name right now. It'll say it up on the screen, but he's nice enough to let everyone stay. Oh, it's Luke. Luke's nice enough to offer everyone to stay at his house, so the group's gonna stay here for a while Will goes on his little journey, killing baddies, getting mystic statues.
And we also noticed that Lance has disappeared, so we're gonna check this hut over here, and we find a couple extra text boxes there, but it's fine. But we find Lance's father, who has I don't know what you could say, completely lost his memory, but
He's just lost his mind.
yeah.
So Lance's father and your father were both at the Tower of Babel during that same expedition. Yeah, and we meet Lance's father here, but he's completely lost it.
Now there is a chance to come back here after you leave Watermia, and you can talk to Lance's father again, and he has started to, regain some of his mind. But we'll see how that's accomplished here after this next dungeon.
So here we have a true romance story. Lance falling in love with Lily, giving her flowers. I mean, it is Lily's birthday after all. And Lily, being the sweetheart she is, she threw him on the ground. And just booked it. But we'll find out why at the end of the next dungeon.
Yes, and then the only way to progress is to somehow find a letter that gets snuck into your belongings. No way of knowing unless you just randomly check your inventory. Because I've never found anything in the game that says, hey, check your inventory.
And here we have the Great Wall. The Great Wall has a little bit of a sequence break in it. We'll get to it. You'll see Sai here. Since we don't have the Freak Dash anymore, we have to resort to quick up inputs with an attack and then quickly sprinting left to get through enemies at a speedrunner's pace instead of just killing them or knocking them out of the way.
Yeah, the safer way to do that would be to get pretty close to them and use Psycho Slider to hit them once and then slide through them the rest of the way. And here we will see Will's legs of adamantium again, as he falls down a great distance.
I mean, his kneecaps are busted, right? There's no way they're not busted after this. So yeah, the Great Wall, the dungeon is broken into a few rooms, but the rooms are vertically stacked to where you just have a bunch of doorways you're traversing up and down through a screen.
I love that bounce damage right there. It's always fun to watch.
Alright, and so at the end of this screen, we see Lily was actually going here. So she finds you, and she'll ride in your pocket for the rest of the dungeon. And this sequence break right here. So after the second ramp you jump over, If you hold B, you'll actually Psycho Slide, which the game does not intend to happen. And it allows you to get here without Freedan. It also allows you to get you. I'm thinking of the rando again. The vanilla game expects you to get Will's third and final move, Spin Dash, to which you get Freedan here to go kill an enemy. It's a very long, drawn-out process, but by doing that sequence break, we can just go ahead and get Freedan right now, and to get a transformation into Will once we get his Spin Dash move, and it saves quite a bit of time.
Yeah, so normally we would jump down the center here to get Spin Dash to go back. But instead, we're going to, like you said, we'll have Freedan here, and we will use Dark Friar to take this guy out first. And since we aren't very strong, it takes a few hits. Because, you know, we're missing some of our strength upgrades. But now we'll come back here and we will get Will's final ability. Now, Freedan also has 3 abilities of his own, but the only one we need is Dark Friar. But yeah, we'll get Spin Dash here, which causes Will to turn into a Cyclone and move at a very fast speed, and he can traverse ramps that way. Now with Will's ability, we will continue on through the dungeon.
Yeah, so Spin Dash, it's about equally as powerful as Psycho Slider, but it damages quicker. And its ramp ability is what we mainly needed for to progress through the dungeon. We're coming up on a boss fight that is a forced fight with Will, and it relies a lot on RNG. There's 3 main cycles. You're going to see an up and down cycle, a left to right or right to left cycle, or what we call an egg cycle, where he spawns eggs. At most, Sai can only do 2 hits worth of damage on the first 2 cycles, but on an egg cycle, you can get up to 8, I believe.
And so get your guesses in. How many eggs am I going to get?
Alright, so there's the vertical cycle. I'm going to talk a little bit during this because it's not too scary yet. The fight can really compound on itself if he does a lot of egg cycles and Sai doesn't take care of the enemies that spawn from him.
Now I'm more concerned with the runners. Oh, that was a missed hit. Okay, I disagree with that one.
So yeah, this fight is a speedrunner's nightmare just because it costs a lot of time for each egg cycle that you don't get. The average is to have 3 egg cycles, I would say. 2.5, 3 egg cycles.
Yeah, 3 is about the average. You know, if anything more than that, and it's just awesome RNG at that point.
Besides getting pretty unlucky with RNG, I think the slowest cycle is the vertical up and down cycle. But we've yet to see any egg cycles, so, you know, marathon luck.
I'll just get my revenge on him later. Oh, wow.
Man, oh man. The heck kind of fight is this?
That was bad on my part. Oh, he actually spawned real close to me that time. Ooh, I was sad. I know I moved up a little too much there. I finally
Nice. There's an egg cycle.
Well,
And
we had a guest in chat that said 1 or 2, so...
Alright, so another example of poor RNG from the game, but it is what it is. We move forward. That's just...
ooh, come on, Marathon Luck. Show Sai a little love.
I'm still alive, I guess I can't really complain about that. But we'll drop, or Lily will pop out of our pocket to get onto Lance for taking off. And then Lance asks us to look after Lily and everyone else. And we'll find out why after we make it back to Watermia. But we have to continue our love story first. So the necklace that Lance gives Lily, there's actually a couple of areas where there are stones on the ground, which we did not pick up. They are place markers to tell you where to go in the dungeon. And they are part of the necklace that Lance was making for Lily, which he gives her here, and somehow has all of the stones magically appear on it. Game logic. But we find out that Lily does, indeed have the same feelings for Lance that he has for her, so they're both excited. And for Lance, it just feels like a million summer days. Teenage romance. Alright, back to this main story.
So, aside from dark things like, air quotes, labor trading, we also find ourselves in a little bit of predicament with Russian roulette.
See, we need to cross the desert, but we need Crux, which are this game's version of a camel. But in order to do that, we have to make our way over to this raft that's all by its little lonesome over here.
And what better way to earn some crux than to take them from a man after he dies?
Now, there is... They try to lighten it slightly. You get an item called the Will from the man's wife. She reads it, and basically it says that the man is dying. He has an illness that's going to eventually take his life. So he's doing all of this to make as much money as he can for his wife and his unborn child. And if somebody were to ever beat him, they would acquire his prized crux. So, yes, the guy is dead, but hey, at least we get our crux. And pay attention to all the sprites as they're riding the crux. It's kind of amusing. Will and Neil, normal riding. Kara being the lady, so she's riding side saddle. And Eric is just holding on for dear life. But now we have made it to the city of Europe. The hometown of Neil.
And if, when you're speedrunning this game, you ever need a shot for a bathroom break, here's your only chance. As soon as you hit A to start this auto text, you got a little bit of time. So yeah, this is Euro. This is a very wealthy city. And the Rollin company, which is owned by Neil's parents, is at the center of the screen right now. So we're going to get a little bit of backstory on Neil at this spot in the game.
Now, normally you would go through and you would kind of explore the town, go into everyone's houses and whatnot. But we only need to go into this house and talk to these elderly people here. to find out that there is a magic teapot in this wonderful dungeon that we're getting ready to go into.
Now, Sai's calling this a wonderful dungeon because he's also lost his mind.
Well, I do.
Mount Cress is just the bane of my existence, at least. I know there are other speedrunners that hate this dungeon. For some odd reason, Sai loves this dungeon. So yeah, we did just kill Sandfanger, so Sai is maxed out on the stats he could have right now.
I got good
So if he
RNG
gets
on that
hit-
spider.
Yeah, he didn't get hit by that spider. If he gets hit, he's not going to take too much damage from it. So we're going to do this entire dungeon without dying until we get to the end. We'll death warp out of it, but we should be able to make it all the way through without dying. Now, to progress through this dungeon, we have to pick up mushroom drops, and these mushroom drops are special enough to lengthen vines that aren't done growing yet, and those vines will give us access to areas further in. But these mushroom drops are in treasure chests that have fanfares associated with them, and you can do this invincibility glitch on treasure chests with fanfares. So you're going to see Sai do it 2 more times in this dungeon, right here.
Ooh, I don't think that worked. So, we'll find out.
Yeah, if you didn't get the invincibility glitch here, be a little more careful.
No, and that's fine. Just taking that hit from the Skulker, as they are
Yeah.
called.
He killed that yellow skull to open up the shortcut out of here, so taking 1 hit here is fine, just because you do want to take a little bit of damage as you progress through. Just because you take so little damage, you don't want to slow death warp at the end of the dungeon.
Take some hits here. The problem with this dungeon is, like Solar said, I am fully caught up on all of my defense, so a lot of the enemies don't do a whole lot of damage. The spiders and these blue skulls do one damage, so the things that do the most damage are the fairies. If you
Yeah,
try
well,
to
that was
avoid
shot.
those,
Yeah, so these fairies are the ones you're seeing right here. We'll have another shot for the invincibility glitch. We're also going to hope that we don't get hit with lag for too hard here.
come on, hopefully they're only running around in pairs.
Yeah, if you get 3 or 4 on the screen at the same time, the game's going to really start to slow down and lag.
Okay. Not bad. They were spaced out enough that the
Yeah,
lag
there's
wasn't
just
horrible.
1 little hitch right there. Not bad.
Okay, we'll just kill that one. So now there is one more. That was actually really good. There's one more set of mushroom drops to get. And we do not do the iframe glitch on it. Because as soon as we acquire it, we have to run down a ramp. And the ramp gives us iframes, so it cancels it out. So there's no point in even trying it. Because I would have it here, and as soon as I ran down to the left, I would lose it.
So this is the 3rd and final mushroom drops, and we'll be making our way towards the end of the dungeon.
Do a spin dash right there. Just, a little bit of extra time save. Gotta go as fast as we can. Oh, wow. They actually cooperated.
What is this spider luck?
I don't know, but I'll probably never see it again.
You wasted it all on this run.
Yeah, those spiders can just come at you, and they have no remorse. Because they're spiders.
Alright. So, final room of the dungeon. A little bit of a sprint up to get the teapot.
I think the old way, we used to spin dash up here, but it was found to be just faster to run. I guess the time it takes to charge and to activate the spin dash, that's just enough time that running is faster. Oh, come on. Come over here.
Alright, and
that's Mount Crest.
which is supposed to be the obligatory maze dungeon for the game. You know, JRPGs, you have your prison dungeons, you have your mazes. The only one this does not have is the snow area. If it had that, it'd be complete. But I guess because it's an action RPG, they figured they didn't have to do that. And yes, I'm just randomly opening up people's doors as I run by.
Such a hoodlum.
Ah, they had it coming. So now we'll use the teapot's tears to show that the Moon Tribe was actually posing as Neil's parents. Neil's parents have passed away quite some time ago, and the Moon Tribe just took over their form and then has been running the business in their stead. And now someone has come asking about Kara, about being an old friend. We don't know who that is, but then we find out it's Hamlet. Hamlet has somehow made his way all the way from South Cape to us in Euro. We're not quite sure how he manages to do it, but, you know, being the powerful little piggy that he is, he made it work. So now we'll talk to Kara, and we will continue on our journey to a small natives village to the west of Euro.
Physically can't watch this scene, and so I'll be back in 1 minute.
Poor Solar. So we'll go in here to speed up Lillian, or Kara and Eric to move faster. And we take a nap in this hut, and we see the 3 of the natives who look a little hungry. And you can kind of see their ribs. They enter the hut, you know, because they want to wake us up. You know, the food's about ready, so they don't want us to miss dinner, right? Well, come to find out, we're the main course. So Hamlet comes over here, and he's gonna wish Kara goodbye and say that, you know, he enjoyed their time together, and he's sorry that she has to be food. But then poor Hamlet sacrificed himself so that the others could live. The thing is that the spirit of Will's mother was actually residing inside Hamlet, which is rather disturbing when you think about it. So we'll talk to that top child there to get our next location, which is Angkor Wat, my favorite dungeon. So Solar, if you want to come back, you are more than welcome.
Oh, I'm here.
Now we are in Angkor Wat, which has the worst enemy in the entire game.
There's a lot of hatred for the enemies in this dungeon. We'll see the worst one coming up, but things start to hit a little harder in here.
Yeah, those golems that you saw falling down hit harder than any other enemy in the game, even in the final dungeon. Let that go. They actually hit just as hard as the enemies in Jeweler's Mansion.
Which is the secret final dungeon if you collect all 50 red jewels.
And somebody in chat saying the fly, yes. You will see...
They're evil incarnate, that's all you have to say.
Yes. The simplest of terms, that's the best way to describe it. Because they are pure RNG. as to how they move.
Okay, so in Mount Crest, Sai skipped over Friedan's second move, which is Aura Barrier. It shouldn't even be called a move. It's useless, it's worthless, never get it. Even in casual playthroughs, it doesn't deserve the programming. This dungeon has Friedan's third and final move, Earthquaker, but we actually aren't going to pick it up, even though the game expects you to use it to progress through the dungeon.
Okay, so far they are cooperating, which is scaring me.
So, with some proper placement of Friedan, you can actually use Dark Friar to damage an off-screen enemy and skip needing Earthquaker. Earthquaker is a move that you use when jumping off a ledge to freeze all enemies in place, and you need to do that to stop one of these golems from blocking you, an invincible golem. But with the Dark Friar, you can kill this golem before he goes into his invincibility state. Alright, so the flies were very kind to Sai.
Alright.
And now he's about to do Earthquaker skip.
Gotta have it. Okay, that was good. Now, I kind of hesitated there because I wanted to make sure that I could push that golem out of the way. Because he likes to get, just all up in your face. Make it to where, you screw up the skip and you have to exit the room and come back in and try it all over. But we're going to the first set of checkpoint right here. And then Death Warp. Right back to it.
Yeah, that was good execution on Earthquaker skip. You need 3 hits to kill that golem with your Dark Friar. And like Sai said, you want to knock that golem out to the right after the second hit. Otherwise, you run the risk of running into him on the third hit. And that golem, I think it might be like 5 damage. No, maybe. It might be 5 on the current strat setup of damage he does to you. Which, depending on how your luck was in the garden with the flies and the other enemies, you might not have that kind of HP to give away.
Yeah, the flies can really destroy a run. And I guess we should talk about this bright light here.
So the game expects you to go outside on the right side and pick up the sunglasses. And those sunglasses will block this bright white light so you can see where you're actually going. But as a speedrunner, you can start to memorize where those the pathways are, where the holes are, so you can dodge them. So we're coming up on the end of the dungeon. And as Sai does, he likes to give me a heart attack and take extra damage when he doesn't intend to, but that's fine because Sai is the man and handled his business.
Yeah, I had a backup. Now, this cutscene is going to look a little weird than when you in your normal casual play. Normally what it'll do here is it will back up, it'll zoom out. But because we keep tricking the game going straight into the dungeons and towns, it never really figures out how to do that. So you get to see a real smushed close-up version of what the world is supposed to look like. But because of the comet that's closing in, it looks the way it does now. We also get what's called a Gorgon flower. Now, the creatures that I've been calling golems in this are actually called Gorgons. So this is a flower that I'm assuming that it actually comes from, it's made from them, and it releases people from being petrified.
I mentioned checkpoints back in Skyguard. You'll see Sai just did a death warp right there, but he didn't start back at the beginning of the dungeon. Anchor Wat has a very unique layout to where there are 3 different checkpoints. You have the beginning of the dungeon, you have the garden, and you have where Sai just spawned. So he has to run back through the rest of the dungeon.
Okay, that worked.
It's quite the interesting strat.
Yeah, if you can get close enough to the shrubberies,
fly takes a victim.
They had to get one hit in.
Yeah. Alright, so he's gonna unlock a shortcut right here.
You can kind of see part of it because it was off screen when I did the cancel glitch. But it'll help me just get through a lot faster. And that's Echo Watt.
Spin dash to safety. Alright, we have one final dungeon.
Oh boy.
And it certainly is a dungeon.
So what I might do here is I might kill both of those enemies at the top of the pyramid just for a bit of extra safety.
Yeah, there's a defense jewel if you kill the 2 laser orbs at the top of the pyramid. Not a bad idea for a marathon run. Gives you a little extra defense. Typically, 1 defense is 1 extra HP of damage you can take per hit, so should help Sai out. We just had that entirety of Anchor Watt of upgrades we missed out on. We have the entirety of the pyramid. It's a lot of upgrades we're missing out on, and it makes for a scary time. I know the boss, if the boss hits you twice, you're dead.
Yeah.
A lot of the enemies, they hit like a truck, so better be safe than sorry for a marathon run.
And it's really just one room in particular that pretty much worries every runner, I would say.
And it should be the first room that Sai tries to conquer after he gets through the initial part of the pyramid.
Took a hit there, but it's fine. I'm going to end up being healed when I talk to Gaia to get a very important item.
Yeah, so here we're going to meet the second and final transformation for Will, Shadow. Shadow is OP. He has an interesting ability with the item that Gaia is giving you right here, the Aura. It allows you to sink through floors. And certain floors have designations to where you'll actually end up on a lower level if you sink through them. Shadow does the most damage out of all the characters in the game. And he kind of carries the same movement tech as Freedan, where you can do invincibility frame dashing through enemies if you attack while sprinting and then quickly re-grab your attack. So here, Sai's using the aura to get down to the bottom of the pyramid, and he's going to go after room 3, which holds the scariest enemy group in the entire game, Killer 6. So these laser orbs, they're a little scary when it comes to how they fire. You can usually gauge when they're going to fire by the sparkles in front of them, but the timing on that laser coming out varies for each attack. So you might get a quick hit, you might get something slower. It's hard to gauge what's going to happen. At the end of this room, there's going to be 6 of those orbs stacked with each other. And Shadow doesn't have a move for long range. Freedan's the only one that has that move, but to use Freedan down here would take a much longer time. And so
I'm a little cautious here.
Sai's going to make sure he doesn't take too much damage, because we can use the invincibility frame dashing to make sure we can get within the group of laser orbs and try to kill them quickly. But it's a little precise, and if he gets shot before he can do that movement, or if he doesn't attack at the right rhythm while he's in between them, he'll start taking damage, and that damage is going to knock him around. It's not a good place to be in, so we'll see how it goes. Seems like he can take about 3 hits without dying, so...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
If he does die, he'll just warp back to the beginning of this room. A bit of a time loss, but not the end of the world. It's not awfully punishing.
Alright.
So he's going to line himself up, and here we go.
Too far forward. So now what happened was I had slid too far into them. Luckily I had the HP that I did, otherwise that would have gone very bad. But I made sure that I took out the majority of them, and I left the one up here, because that's the one that I was too far forward for. Which is another reason why I grabbed that herb back in Angel Village, was just for that one spot in particular. We managed to make it work.
Yeah, the only thing that herb gets a player, if they don't use it on Killer 6, is the ability to take one extra hit from Mummy Queen. But the Mummy Queen, when you know her patterns and know what's going on, shouldn't be too awful. Using that on the Killer 6 is a good move. It's probably more of a time loss to die on the Killer 6 than it is on the Mummy Queen, depending on how far into the Mummy Queen fight you're at.
Yeah, if you're still on the first half of the fight, it's not so bad. But once you get... Okay, I don't know how I did not just get hit, but I'm grateful I didn't.
It's because you're the runner you are, Sai. A man among men.
Yeah. Mummy Queen is... I wouldn't say scripted, but she has set patterns that are easy to see. I guess I should have gone for the fast route, just for a little bit of swag, but didn't do it. Mainly because I don't know how Room 5 is going to treat me.
Yeah, so the Killer 6 is the scariest part of this dungeon, but it's just one section of Room 3. Room 5 is a little more dangerous overall throughout the entire room. There are 3 rooms in the pyramid we do with Shadow and 3 rooms we do with Will, just based on how they're laid out. So after Sai picks up the second hieroglyph, we'll go into the final room with Shadow.
Then the reason Room 5 is scary is the bird soldiers.
Yeah, so there's a very useful tech that Sai showed off a few times already called the Aura Glitch. And it's done by attacking, but quickly canceling your attack with pressing the item use button Y to use Aura. If you do that, you'll carry damage from your hitbox with whatever you touch. And it's useful because it knocks enemies out of the way if you end up landing on them after using Aura. So we'll see if this bird soldier cooperates that way. He didn't, but Sai got away with it anyway.
I'm using up all my luck here.
Oh, he might be a little far to the right. Close though.
Thank
So
you
can
for
line
following.
up right here with
You
the
are
aura,
now
pixel
officially
perfect, and you'll be able to pull it up and go into that doorway without having to
rolling
spawn back
deep,
from
my
the floor.
son, with the RP
But
motherfucking
it usually
G.
costs more time to set it up than it's worth doing. Alright, so there was a good use of the aura glitch for the bird soldier. Sai just showing off aura glitch right now.
Gotta show off the neat tech.
Yeah, that's what was happening. Alright, one more iframe dash.
See, now, in order to sink through a floor, there has to be at least 2 blocks, 2 of the, where you can actually see bricks underneath. I was too far to the left, which, yeah. So Shadow went, nah, I can't do it.
Alright, we have 3 hieroglyphs of the 6. Time of death, warp back to the beginning of this room, and we'll go do the other 3 with Will.
And we'll start off with room 6. We make good use of spin dash in all of Will's rooms. Just so that we can move faster.
So yeah, what you just saw Sai do, you can actually walk through those mummies into the staircase if you're lined up properly. But if you're not lined up, you'll take damage, but it doesn't matter if you take too much damage because you want to death warp after you get the hieroglyph here. So he did it there without taking damage. He was lined up properly. So it's kind of a win-win. If you don't have a spin dash far enough to knock the enemy out of the way and just go right into the staircase. So yeah, you got the hieroglyphs, gonna death warp out of here.
Now, this next room has a nice new strat that a runner by the name of Mr. Freet, who also came up with the Freet Dash, found out that you can actually manipulate how these orbs position themselves. So if you get close enough, you can make them all hang out up top, and you can just run right below them. Before, we would slide through them, and it would cause a little more lag than what we see there.
Yeah, so that was good execution on Sai's part. Really handled that well. This room 4 is actually broken into 2 sections. We've got running through all these enemies right here, and then a crushing ceiling section, which I know for me at least was kind of rough figuring out when to do these spin dashes for protection.
I'm not even sure what just happened there. I've never seen that before.
Chalk that up the marathon RNG. No, the tops of stairs can sometimes hang you up.
That was almost
That's a rare sight to see, though, for sure.
Yeah, I was probably holding up just enough on my D-pad to...
Yeah, that's probably what was going on. Alright, so that's 5 hieroglyphs. He's gonna death warp, and we'll take on room number 1 of the pyramid.
Now, there's also an item that I have skipped getting, which is your father's journal. And father's journal kind of explains a little bit more on the story, and it also gives you the hieroglyph order. Which, funny enough, the hieroglyph order is the order of the rooms. So you don't really need the journal to know which hieroglyph goes where. So as long as you can remember which rooms you did and the order you did them in, you can just throw the glyphs into which spot they're supposed to be. Which for new runners I know can get a little confusing. I had to have a guide at first, just until I got it memorized. That's a little far back. I'll probably take a hit here. I'm gonna switch over to Lola's Melody here because, you know, sometimes you just gotta play a little song.
Alright, 6 hieroglyphs, 0 deaths. Not too bad.
Now, you'll remember us talking about a character named the Jackal. Yeah, we haven't seen him all game, so maybe he's just a fake person. Not really. This is the Jackal. This is the hunter/assassin that was hired by Kara's mom, the Queen, to gain the power that Will has, and to also bring Kara back to the castle. But this room has a bit of a trap to it, and if it hears any loud noise, the trap activates, and you'll see what happens.
Man, oh man, this is a gruesome game.
Like I said, with as colorful as it is, it has a dark, really dark undertone. Now, I am a little too far left, which I could have changed after I had played the melody, but I left Will where he was. You know, you gotta keep him safe from the fire. It's also kind of funny to put him in the path of the fire.
You monster.
So yes, now we're putting the hieroglyphs in. supposed to be. And, we can just walk right over the Jackal. No remorse. And Will never catches on fire because he's Will.
So for boss fights,
Will always do 1 damage, Freedan will always do 2 damage, and Shadow will always do 3 damage. So we're going to transform into Shadow here. Plus, this boss fight really... it requires the use of Aura.
Mm-hmm. Got the left dash
So
there. That was
Sai didn't heal here because regardless, if he takes 2 hits from Mummy Queen, he'll die.
okay, good.
So there's no need to heal here. She has a few different move sets. She can move around. She can cause bricks to rain from the sky. She'll shoot orbs of death at you. Basically, the strat is to go back left to right each time you hit her.
Oh boy. I lost my dash input. So that just made this even more scary.
Scary? No. Interesting? Yes. So I'm gonna let Sai focus, and good luck on the fight.
She would. Right at the very end, she would.
A little bit of swag from Sai right here for the Aura Glitch kill. Alright, that is Mummy Queen. Once again, wrecking my heart and soul, giving me a heart attack. That's how he do.
And I even promised that I would not be, trying to kill you this run.
Alright, we have 5 of the 6 mystic statues. Will's father is calling you to the Tower of Babel. We do not have the 6th one yet, but we're going to head over to the Tower of Babel anyway.
So we're going to talk to Neil, who has repaired his airplane and assures us that it is not going to crash like it did last time. So we have to take him at his word and pray that it doesn't crash.
So if you all had any favorite boss from this run so far, you're going to get to see them again. The Tower of Babel is more or less a boss rush. It's not really a dungeon. There aren't enemies to kill. You just have to kill each of the bosses you've been through so far. So right now you have every upgrade possible through the game, minus I guess there's some from the jeweler or some from the room in Euro.
Yeah, there's the 2 upgrades, there are 3 upgrades in Euro, and then the extra one from the jeweler.
But that being said, Sai is definitely not as squishy as he was going through the run. He's more or less maxed out on everything, so he can take some hits from these bosses. But we'll see what kind of RNG he gets. He's going to have to fight the vampires again. Vampires are a little scarier. They now have detection boxes on their sprites. So the previous vampires you could walk through and not take damage. These ones you can't touch, otherwise you would take damage.
Yeah, if I want to get right there on them to do an aura glitch, I will have to iframe dash into them first and then immediately do the aura glitch.
Yeah, we have Sandfanger 2.0, which is hopefully going to give him better luck than the original did. Cast Off shoots twice as many attacks off. It's a little bit harder fights, but nothing that a beefed up Shadow can't handle.
So we just acquired the crystal ring that King Edward was wanting from us. Turns out it was inside the flute, or part of the flute, to begin with.
So technically, Will was lying when he told the king he didn't have it, but there was no way to really know that at the time.
Well, I mean, it's faster to tell him that you don't have it. Okay, now I'm going to switch back to the aura before I forget.
So typically you'll take one hit from cast off here just because you're relying on so much more RNG from where these attacks are going to be going. But if he gets pretty good RNG, he might be in a safe spot to where he won't take any damage, but we'll see.
So I'm gonna get hit no matter what here.
Yeah, he's in a...
With him doing double horizontal attacks and in opposite directions.
We've got a Rollin deep raid. Shout out to that old school gangster,
But that's
doing any of that
You
bullshit,
can take some
you-ass
damage to
fucking
these fights.
posting garbage, keeping it real.
Yeah,
Worst case
going
scenario, there's always
old
healing
school on
at
the
dark
street.
spaces if we need it.
Rolling deep with the raid for the Rollin Deep Marathon.
As you can tell, Cast-Off doesn't do a whole lot of damage now. Because, we're not squishy anymore.
Alright, good damageless Viper fight.
Shadow being as OP as he is just makes all these early bosses trivial.
Now, not that it's going to happen, but if he does die, he doesn't have to do the entire boss rush over again. Once he kills a boss, that boss is dead. He'll just start back on the floor from the boss that he died.
Yeah, whatever the
So it's-
entrance is for that floor, that's where I'll start.
Yeah, it's not super punishing to die on some of these bosses.
Alright, Vampire 2.0 here. Ooh, okay. Okay, really great start there. Where's he gonna go? Really good vampire fight.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Really good RNG, really great execution.
Yeah, I was not expecting the female vampire to drop straight down the way she did.
Showing off for Hulk in chat, I see.
Well, of course, gotta show off for Hulk. Now, the refight we've all been waiting for.
Sandfanger, the giver of only one egg.
Ah, I canceled that. That was my fault. Looks like he's still gonna troll. Living up to his name as Trollfanger. Oh, okay, that was... He doesn't always move straight up and down. He can move to the left or right some. So that was just... bad position on my part.
Man, oh man, Sai. This marathon RNG.
Oh, half an egg. Half an egg.
Alright, all that's left is the Mummy Queen refight. The only difference in this fight is the center area is a little bit more open for him to run around in. It's actually a little bit safer of a fight compared to the one in the pyramid. But she gave him really good RNG as far as the second cycle. Hopefully she does the same thing here on this refight.
One can only hope. And yes, that was the second egg phase that was guessed about earlier. Okay, she's gonna move down again. That's nice. We'll let her move a little further down. Ooh, I even got a bit of a right movement there. That was nice.
Alright, so you can see she doesn't do nearly as much damage as she did before. So we're going to use the same technique of running to one side and using aura to protect yourself.
Yeah, if we didn't have aura for this fight, it would be a little scarier. My dash got just a little too close. And then that can happen if she was too low. I couldn't actually hit the proper ghost. There is one ghost that is real, and you have to hit that to get her to reform. And she actually gave me great RNG that time.
What the heck is your Mummy Queen RNG in this run? That's really good. One bad cycle in the first fight, and no bad cycles in the second fight. Awesome. Alright, so those are the rest of the bosses in the game. We just have the final boss.
And you'll notice that two of the bosses actually help us along the way after we beat them a second time, and they realize they don't stand a chance against us. And here Kara has come back, and she's going to show off her power walking skills.
Alright, and here we meet Will's father.
And due to a certain room inside of Babel that holds the light of the comet, he has turned into the form that he is in now.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit of story, a little bit of lore. We'll figure out why some people don't evolve because of the light of the comet and why some people do. We'll learn about the ancient war, the knights, and we'll learn that Will's father actually holds the sixth mystic statue.
Will's dad is a Nihilite, pretty much. Before that, he was a flute. Yes. Right here, he gives us the last mystic statue that is required. And a little more text to go through, saying that the comet will soon be very close. We need to go to the roof of the tower so that we can acquire the only ability that Shadow ever gets. But first we need to talk to a few spirits. One of them, of course, being Seth right there, as you can tell from the purple text.
And one being Hamlet. Good old Hamlet. Alright. With Kara being one of the knights also, they join together, they use the mystic statues, and Firebird is born. An amazing ability you only get to use on the final boss fight. So it's a two-part boss fight. We've got your Comet, and then your Dark Gaia. Should be pretty epic. I'm gonna shut up, let the music play. This is my favorite track of the game, the final boss music, so enjoy the final fight.
should say the time will come up on the last hit. Time.
GG Psy.
The three
Got that
cycle.
3 cycle in.
Whew.
Awesome run, man.
Thank you. Thank you for all the GGs in chat. And that is Illusion of Gaia any percent.
So yeah, if anyone here has any interest in learning the run for this game or just getting to be part of the community, shoot Psy990 a message, shoot myself a message. I'm SolarCell007. We will get you in that community. It's a great community. We'd love to help you learn the run. If you have any interest in the randomizer, because there is a randomizer generated for this game, also shoot us a message. We will get you into that. I'm not afraid to put a shameless plug up for that. So, yeah, thanks for letting me commentate, Psy. I hope everyone enjoyed watching this.
I appreciate you commentating, and I appreciate the whole Rollin Deep community for allowing me to showcase this game. Alright, that was Illusion of Gaia. Thank you, everyone.
Yo. Yo, yo, yo.